Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this will be this week's um, recordings for the Simul games that I play on Friday. If you don't know already, 5 to 7, stop by. I will accept all challenges of like a 20-minute or a 30-minute time control, and everyone will be free to play. Just show up and have fun. That's the main goal. And try out what you want. So let's take a look at this game. Let's see how it went. So the game went. So this one is against Anthon 2010. And if we look at the game result, I lost this. Why? Well, um, time and a little bit busy, but that's okay. I'm bound to lose. And let's analyze it. That's the most important part, analyzing a game. So let's begin. E4, E6, knight F3, B6. So when we look at this opening, the French defense is the move D5, but I'm not playing the French defense. What am I playing? I'm playing a very unorthodox setup, just very odd, trying to go for some pressure in the center, bishop B7, maybe go for a C5, maybe a knight F6. It all really depends. We'll see how the game plays out. D4, bishop B7, bishop D3. Now you can see that, okay, white is taking the center squares. I'm taking one, but that's it. That's all I'm taking. I'm developing my knight. Bishop G5 comes out. I play bishop E7. Another move is H6, and after bishop H4, we can play G5, so that afterwards we can take the pawn on E4, because we have the support of the bishop. Another move that black could play, bishop E7, just defending against the pin. D6 could also be a move, but it could get a little weird after E5. So in the game, I chose bishop E7. I said I want to develop a piece, but I also want to just unpin myself, have fun. Knight BD2 happens, and then D5. So now you're seeing that I'm starting to creep into the game, right? I'm attacking this pawn, not doing much other than that. E5, knight F to D7. Now, this structure might look very similar to a French defense, and it is indeed comes from a French defense. What is the only difference? Well, the only difference is that this bishop is on B7. That's the only difference. Bishop to E3, I play C5, C3, knight to C6, nothing much. This is a very typical French structure, right? And then one day, black is going to play this move F6 to break the center. So what other opening is also breaking the center? Well, sometimes you might see this sort of same theme in the Caro-Kann. I want to break this pawn chain so that black can get into the game with more space, and maybe the pieces are more advanced. So after rook c1, which is an interesting move, saying I might want to play c4. I might want to open up this line and have some fun. Well, I think that's perfectly valid. So I play rook e8. Now what I should have done is I should have maybe considered the move f6, because after f6, this is looking like a French, right? E takes f6. And then what? We have to consider bishop takes f6 with the possibility of e5. We have to consider knight takes f6, and we're going to leave this pawn open, but we got to consider our consequences, right? We also can consider rook takes f6, saying I'm going to leave this file open, but I'm also going to maybe want to push this e pawn. So I'm keeping the options flexible, but I believe that I should have played f6 here. It probably would have been better for my position, because as you can tell in this current position, I'm cramped, right? And with a cramped position, you usually say, I can't do much right now. I gotta wait, I gotta hold, I gotta duck and cover, right? But with F6, now this just, it, it's sort of like there might be a way out, right? Think about it that way. There might be a way out, we're gonna push for it. So, I played Rook E8 instead, and this is probably bad for me because I'm not deciding to break the center wall when in fact I should. So Rook E1 happens, and even here I can continue playing F6, but I ignore it because I just I kind of felt like this E6 pawn would be a little bit too weak. I don't know why. I mean, it's a very common theme in the French, but even a player like me was a little bit afraid somehow. Or maybe it was just because in that kind of setting, when you're playing a simul, you just don't want to take risks. And that's that's acceptable, but might not win you games. So if I keep crawling back like this and keeping up in my burrow, I'm not going to win games. I might draw, I might lose, but I'm not going to win. So just note to self, knight f8, bishop b1, very good, just planning queen c2 if necessary, looking towards h7. I'm like, I'm going to cement this knight on f8, so you'll never checkmate me. So I play knight g6, and now our friend Anthon 2010 plays another great move, knight to f1, saying, okay, I'm going to play knight g3, I'm going to play knight h5, maybe I'll play knight f4 one day and challenge this really strong knight, but those are my options. So rook c8. So what I'm planning to do is I'm going to say I might open up here. I might bring my bishop here, get my queen over, maybe create something on the queen side. Knight g3, c takes d4. Now this is my first instinctive action. I'm finally starting to try to get out of my burrow. C takes d4, knight a5. I'm just saying, okay, I want to get to c4 and try to get something. Now after bishop d3, so here there were a few other moves. Number one, white has to consider, is it good to trade here? Right? Is it good? Right? Because the queen can come out, the other rook can come out. But what else can we do, right? Can we play knight h5 right now? Right? Because we know also that knight c4 is a threat. What if we play b3? Right? What ifs? And so sometimes we just got to think about those and try to discuss the variations that come up. Bishop d3, knight c4. This is all standard. It looks good. And now bishop takes c4. Now, remember, when I offered this knight to c4, it doesn't mean you have to take all the time. Because if bishop takes c4 here, now all of a sudden there's d takes c4. And do you know what you did? You kept this bishop. It was closed, right? It was walled in. It was walled in by these guys. It really had maybe here, didn't have much room, right? Even if we brought the bishop here, would have played b3, but there's knight b2 here, so it gets a little bit complicated. But what I'm saying is that the bishop really has nowhere to go. It has here, here, and it's gone, right? But now after our friend Anthon takes on c4, d takes c4, and all of a sudden this diagonal, right? Number one, black could play queen d5, put a battery on this diagonal. Black could play knight h4 now, and all of a sudden this diagonal presents some gold, right? Some opportunity to black, and obviously black is going to be very happy. In addition, well, black can create a very stable pawn structure on the queen side, and that's a part of it, is that when we look right here, right, when we try to determine if this trade is beneficial or not, both black and white need to see the consequences of what happens after the trade, right? Because ultimately it's not what the trade is, but how does the trade impact the game, right? Does it shift the momentum in one guy's favor? Is it like an NBA game where, like, let's say the Los Angeles Lakers were up like 10, but then Steph Curry hit a few threes and all of a sudden we're back in the game, right? The Golden State Warriors, but they lost by a lot um, in their most recent encounter. So whatever, that's not relevant for now. But knight c4, and we just have to see the aftershocks, the effects of this trade, because trading is a very important concept, but it's all about what happens afterwards. It's not about, I'm going to trade this and it's going to be all right. It's about, I'm going to trade this, but what's going to happen afterward, right? What kind of favor did you do for black? Or how does it help white, right? So I would say in this position, this bishop is very important in attacking the king side. So for example, we have h4, h5, and if the bishop were back on b1, the queen were on d3, well, this pawn would be heavily attacked, right? And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that here, although this knight is doing so much to threaten b2, there's probably a better way to deal with it than getting rid of it. Like, for example, I would suggest the move rook c2, just saying I'm going to protect that, or even queen to e2, right? Both moves are okay. It really depends upon how you want to go about it. So bishop takes c4 happens, d takes c4, queen to c2. So at this moment, I have a few options. Number one, I can take on f3. And around here, if I remember correctly, I am near low on time. I'm like 0 time this because I had to do some things around the house and just time just fell apart, right? So at this moment, I'm playing blitz. I'm playing real quick, and I'm like, what do I do here, right? So immediately, when you're under time pressure, you just trade. And I just did that. I traded. And I felt like this was an extremely good trade on my part because, number one, I doubled white's pawns. And how am I going to attack that pawn? Well, knight to h4. I'm just saying, I'm going to threaten your pawn. And how are you going to defend it, right? Queen e2 happens, and queen to d5, just bringing the forces in. And knight to e4. Okay, well, you deflect me from this line of sight. So what do? f5. I say, I'm going to force you to move. And if you move, then I'm going to put some more pressure. I might play rook f8, play f4, right? So that's one of them. I might also play, so after knight e4, f5, here, this is the other continuation. E takes f6. So after e takes f6, it's really interesting. Do I take with the bishop, right? And we say knight takes f6, g takes f6. The pawn's going to be very open. That's one way to do it. So after bishop takes f6, I could also threaten d4. That's another way to think about it. Here's another food for thought. Queen to f5. Queen to f5 saying, I'm going to take on f3, and I'm going to get in here and get some schnickerdoodles. Well, that's one way to do it as well. And another way is just to say, I'm going to take on f6 with the pawn, move my king over, going to bring the rook in, bring the rook in. That's another way to do it. So there are multiple ways to think about it. And with that, I will see you in the next video.